Welcome back. Now, this coming Tuesday will mark the end of this year's 16 Days of Activism against gender-based violence around the world. Tonight, we try to take a deeper look at the issue of convicted offenders who go on to reoffend after being released. This, of course, after a recent Soweto rapist was hit with a fresh sentence after he raped 3 more women while he was out on parole. So this begs the question, what work and rehabilitation is being done? And quite frankly, is it enough? To talk us through some of the good work that is being done, we are joined now by the clinical psychologist, Dr Keitumetse Mashego, and in studio by Trinity Msibi, who's a reformed ex-convict. Thank you to you both. Good evening to you, Dr Mashego, who's joining us online, as well as to Trinity, who is in studio. Trinity, I really would like to start with you for this conversation as well, considering that you're a reformed ex-convict. Take us through the mind of somebody who has served their sentence and then walks out into the real world. Briefly so, what does that entail?
Well, firstly, it entails, should I say, reintegration and how the community or the society at large is going to receive or accept you. So with that in mind, there's also other elements like your employment and how am I going to make a living and everything of that sort. And how am I going to relate to people, especially after being incarcerated for a longer time. And then you coming back, obviously things have changed, you know. Yeah, so you just have a whole lot of thoughts like that and then trying to fit into that society. Yeah.
And I can imagine that can't be easy at all, trying to reintegrate into society. And Dr. Mashego, what is the difference? I mean, people are obviously different, you know, but we're speaking now to Trinity, who has successfully reformed. But then we also have cases like we've just discussed in the intro of that man who raped 3 more women while he was out on parole. What are the distinguishing factors to make sure that we have more Trinities of the world?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. There's 2 things I think we should consider. The first being that, you know, people who go through rehabilitation, even after being an offender, need to see that there was a problem, accept the help and see the need for the help, and to realize that every time they get up, that like someone, for example, who's struggling with alcohol, that every day they need to fight this demon, which is alcoholism. So meaning that they need to accept that they had a problem and therefore that they need to intentionally get over the problem. And the second part of it is that unfortunately, most of the offenders often present with severe psychopathology regarding their personality, meaning they will commit crimes without any remorse because of the presentation psychiatrically, you know, their psychiatric presentation. And I'm not sure if the correctional service actually has on board qualified specialists such as a clinical psychologist and a specialist psychiatrist to actually, you know, assess whether the offenders are likely to, do the crime again, repeat the crime even after discharge, to actually conclude if the offender is actually rehabilitated. Because as you're rightfully saying, not many people are like Trinity. You know, some actually manipulate the system. They are aware of what they need to do to get on parole. And therefore, and it's because of their presentation. And sadly, if they have undiagnosed personality disorder, or, you know, they're not being treated for that, they can actually have a poor prognosis, meaning with any type of rehabilitation, they will not benefit. They cannot benefit from any intervention, and actually they're going to, repeat the occurrence because of that presentation.
Sure. So they can crook the system, essentially.
Definitely, because they're aware of what they need to do to actually, you know, be on parole, because maybe they've been there before, or they've, learned the system because of other offenders that they're in the prison with. So, and because of the presentation, I mean, when we're talking about pathology, personality disorders, we're talking about things like antisocial personality, meaning they're likely to do, the offense again without any remorse and show no conscience in doing it. Therefore, they are, you know, they will not benefit from any type of rehabilitation. So that actually needs to be part of the rehabilitation system, where they are assessed, you know, on the likelihood of the recurrence of the crime.
Yeah. Trinity, for you, just to get into your story a little bit and how you found yourself in this place where you reformed, what crimes had you committed and how difficult was it for you to reform, one, and two, not to repeat those crimes?
Firstly, I would say I apologize for whatever offenses that I've done in the past to every victim of crime, whether it was I who perpetrated or somebody else, and even people who are still suffering crime from now, as of now. But what I would say is that it first started with a decision making, you know, where you tell yourself that I want to change the way how I do things and actually live what is termed as a normal life by everybody else, you know. So what actually stands out from what the clinical psychologist is saying is that people get into a habit of committing crimes. And once you are in a habit of committing crimes and then you get arrested and then you are convicted and then you're sentenced, you obviously need somebody who will realign you into, you know, doing better with your life. But then the system then, the correctional facility that is, it fails the people or the society in that aspect because it doesn't bring in, as she was articulating earlier about professional, you know, psychiatrists and everything like that. It doesn't bring people who are that qualified. There are, you know, your psychologist, you would be recommended for a psychiatrist or something of that sort that deals with your mental strength and everything like that. But it doesn't necessarily offer all the things that you would need, you know, to actually change somebody else's mindset. If I were to take up that task as perhaps a warden or maybe someone who runs a prison facility, first I would introduce, say, religion, you know, and then religion obviously would now patch the fabric of morality. And then you bring in all other professionals. Number one would be education, and then would be skills. And then there would be motivational speakers, which would do a great deal of work in trying to change the mindset and the behavior patterns. Because remember, offending, it is a habit that continuously grows. And then if done often and often and often, it becomes part of the character of a person. Now, for you to remove something not to be part of a character of a person, you actually need to dig deeper. You go down deeper and remove that as part of them, you know, and that is not easily. It actually requires professionals, you know. So whatever programs are there, they are done at a very poor, you know, scale and approach because they don't have like the effect. Say we are communicating, you know, people communicate, everybody does communicate. But what distinguishes communicating from effective communication is that effective communication brings out the results. But the communication is communication just because we are communicating. So
just to tick boxes.
You understand? Even with the rehabilitation, there's this approach where she spoke lightly about it, but she speaks of people know what they are required to attain for them to, you know, appear and present that before the parole board. Absolutely, but that's all that is there in the correctional facilities. There isn't something that would actually assist in really, you know, tapping into the mental faculties of a human being.
So, Trinity, are you saying that then the rehabilitation process is poor in the correctional services, but then when you come out as an individual, you need to then go get those tools, go get those mechanisms and that help?
Not necessarily when you come out. Whilst you're in there, you know, it is much pivotal for one to actually make the introspection, you know. Introspection, once you do introspection and then you put things in place. Like for one, take me for example, I said, I'm going to be a godly somebody. I needed a pillar to hold on to, you know, as it helps me, you know, change into the man that I have become today. And then obviously I engage in other things, those little programs that they do there, which have no effect. You can't be doing a life skill program for 5 days and come out of the other end and say I'm a life-skilled professional or whatever thing, you know. Yes, you can't be doing anger management for 4 days or 5 days and then you think you have managed to control anger. It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
Just your parting shot, Dr. Mashego, just listening to Trinity as well. Earlier you were talking about remorse and how essential remorse is. And I think even through the screen you can feel the remorse from this ex-offender who's sitting in front of me, Trinity, a different man.
Yes, it's you know, as I said, there's very few Trinities out there, unfortunately, and the correctional service rehab program, I'm of view that it lacks exactly what Trinity said, that there are no professionals. And you know, when someone commits a crime and they claim mental insanity, for example, they are, you know, observed in a psychiatric hospital for about 21 days to, you know, then ascertain whether or not, you know, what they are saying is actually truthful. And I'm of view that all the offenders, you know, in the rehabilitation program need to go through such an assessment so that they can, you know, we can ascertain whether they can come back to society and actually be reformed, or you know, preempt their likely future behaviors. But that is not done. And unfortunately, you know, already we know that there's so much stigma around mental health, but also there's so many limited professionals to serve, you know, the prisons, never mind the society in general. So we really have a crisis on our hands in that we don't have enough professionals to actually do the work that is needed to ensure that society is safe in South Africa.
That is a crisis indeed. Dr. Keitumetse Mashego, thank you so much for your time this evening. And to you, Trinity Msibi, thank you so much. All the best to you and your future endeavors. Thanks for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much.